What's going on? My name is Amy Nicholas. Welcome back to the channel. And today's video, I'm sharing 2 tricks, call them if you will, that helped me go green today, Monday, and Friday of last week. 2 very specific things that I noticed I did on these 2 days that I hadn't been doing in prior days when I'd had a streak of red, last trading week. It was kind of more reds than greens. Week before, definitely more red. And something I started doing on Friday was number 1. And I don't think this is necessarily something you have to do, but if you notice your trading diminishing, you're getting, more losses or whatever, it's remove any distracting noise or sounds in your environment. So for example, I like to listen to live trading on YouTube. So usually I'm listening to Bearable Traders YouTube channel, and I really like the one guy who authored How to Day Trade for a Living, Andrew Assis. Great, book, learned a ton from it. I like to kind of just listen to these guys sometimes in the morning just to see into the mindset of like high performance traders. And I don't always mirror their trades or anything like that. A lot of times they're trading things I'm like, no, I'm not going to touch it. Or they're going long and I'm going short. And I've been right times where that happened and, they got stopped out and I got a profit. And I'm not saying, I'm any better by no means. I'm a beginner here. But what I noticed was Friday, because you can go back on my channel here and see the recap of that. But I jumped into the trading day a little bit later. I decided to not turn on their channel, and I actually was trading later in the morning. So I think they probably would have still been live. It was over an hour past the open, but I just decided to get in the market, not have any background noise on, and not even have any music on. This is something I did in the very beginning of my day trading journey. Was I used to jump in during the pre-market somewhere between like 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. So that's like 8:30 Eastern. So about an hour, before the market opened, I would start trading in the pre-market with the intention of, let's get the surge at the opening bell, cash out, take my profit. And it worked really well for a while in the bull market for sure. But back then it was all silence. I never had anything on because my thinking at that time was keep the distractions to a minimum while I'm trying to focus on the trade, pick a good entry, watch the charts, watch my watch list. I was not trying to bring in any external environment, just keep it simple, right? And there's been days where I would have been green and I made profit, where I had been listening to these guys live. And again, not saying anything against them. It's just a matter of what I have noticed these past 2 days is that both days, Friday and today, I did not turn on their live trading. I just decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to keep it quiet and I'm just going to focus on the trade and just, concentrate and not hear anything that maybe would cause me to question what I'm doing. Because I think that's what tends to happen if you have, say you're in a paid room, even like a live trading paid room, and you're paying to be there. There's other people that are kind of doing something and you might feel FOMO if you don't do it too, or they might be taking trades that just aren't your style, or, jumping in entries that aren't your style, exiting that's not your style. And so there's too many chances, I think, as a newbie trader to basically get confused. And I don't think that's a good place for me to be at right now, is to listen to too many voices or try to take in other things that could distract me and cause me to question. Because there was a couple of times today where I'm like looking at my entry, like, I'm thinking I should get in here, and I'm just kind of analyzing everything to make sure my setup is there. Had I been listening to the live trading session this morning, maybe I wouldn't have even seen that, because I would have been listening to what they were looking at, or who knows, right? Just, I think it's a good idea if you're relatively new to this day trading journey, that you minimize the noise and the distractions as much as possible, at least while you are in the actual act of trading. So that was one of the things I noticed. The second thing that I did. And I completely forgot about this on Friday. My apologies for not mentioning it in that recap, because I thought about it later in the day after I'd already made the video. And I was like, oh, right, I didn't even mention this, but this is something that happened and it was very important, I think. Right before the trading, where I sat down at my desk, right before, I did a guided meditation on YouTube. There's this fantastic video I've been listening to since freaking 2014. I think the video is even older than that. It's called the Manifesting 3 Wishes meditation. It's got this great lady's voice on it. She's Australian, very soothing. It's got like this ocean background, and it walks you through this guided visualization of like 3 manifestations you want to have happen in your life. And I kid you not, this very meditation has helped me bring in, dream cars, dream homes, money, help me quit my job. So I just always refer back to it on a consistent basis. And when I talked about in a previous video, I think it was called like 5 tips and tricks to like day trading mindset or something like that, I mentioned meditation. And I think it's so important to do whatever you can to clear the space up here and just start the day thinking about what you want. So on Friday, I did that meditation. I did the full 10-minute meditation. And I remember closing my eyes just before like sitting down at the computer, and I'm picturing my P&L, and I didn't see a specific number, but I saw green. I just saw like the numbers in green, and that was it. Like that was the only kind of, focus I did on that. And Friday had a great trading day, 2 back-to-back winning trades, and was in and out. And that was my day trading breakthrough video that I just shared with you guys, that I realized I'm a scalp trader. Like this is my lane. I like to get in, get green, get out. And so today when I sat down to trade, that again was my focus. Last week I had wrapped up my 20 trades. I'll be doing a recap video on phase 2 of my 20 day trades that I did back to back, trading 2 shares a piece. I'll give you guys kind of the rundown on how this second series went. And so today I was kind of the mindset of like, okay, let's start phase 3. Let's do another 20 trades. And I didn't have specific parameters in mind on this one. I just decided to leave my default settings at buying the 2 shares per trade, just because I wanted to just jump in this morning and not overthink. And then I said, okay, let's continue on with the scalping. And I continued to use my custom template order, which is, buying, take profit order and a stop loss order. Now I'm using a hard stop instead of the trailing stop like I was using in the previous trades, just because it works better for me for scalping. And I had it set up for a 20-cent stop, 25-cent take profit. I know, very minimal. But I was like, let's just keep it simple. It worked for me on Friday, so I just was going to start it that way today. And what ended up happening, so on my watch list this morning was Tesla, of course, and Palantir, because Palantir is what I traded on Friday. It went great. And so I was like, Palantir has had really good momentum and volume lately, so let's keep that one on the list. So that was really the only 2 I was looking at, which was great because it kept my chart clean. I just had my 2, things up here. I wasn't trying to look at a million different things, and it just made the day simple. So that being said, the first one I went for was Palantir, and I went in with that custom template, 20-cent stop, 25-cent take profit. Well, the volatility was a little strong. I'm jumping in at like 6:32 a.m., which is 9:32. So two minutes after the bell, the volatility was a little bit strong, and it immediately kicked me out with my stop. So I got in at 68.78, and it just dipped down just a little bit, right? Just enough, down to 68.55 to kick me out for a loss of 46 cents. Now here's where it got interesting. I kind of, in that moment, consciously was aware that I had grown as a trader, because previously, if I started the day on something like that, I would be like, dang it, first trade, it's Monday, I'm red, all these thoughts kind of just berating myself in my head. And really all I was thinking at that time was like, oh, shoot, my stop's too tight. I just need to widen my stop a little bit. And the second thought was like, let's just try again. Like duh, you know? And I had been reading this book over the weekend. It's called The Playbook by Mike Bellafiore. And he has a YouTube channel called, I think, SMB Capital. In that playbook, he talks about his top traders at his prop firm. And he mentioned this guy, I believe his nickname was Shark. And he talked about how this guy could just jump right back in the market, like no emotions. If he just got stopped out, lost a trade, it didn't matter. If he needed to, he would jump back in and reverse, like go long instead of short, or he would just jump back in, like without question, you know, if he felt like he knew there was another trade there with his setup. So maybe that was in the back of my mind, just, you know, think like the top traders. And so I took Palantir again. Within like a minute, I'm back into Palantir. And this time though, I had the template there, but I changed it so that I had a 30-cent stop and a 35-cent take profit. So I just increased, you know, both of those and kept the gap a little 5-cent difference to try to get more reward on it. And within, I think, a minute, maybe 45 seconds, I'm taking profit. Like it executes, I'm out of the trade, I'm green. That was a plus 70 cent take on that one. So between the first trade of a minus 46 cents with 2 shares and a plus 70 with 2 shares, I was up like 24 cents, you know, on the day. And I was like, cool, you know, like I had 2 trades and I won more than I lost. Yay. And I kind of thought, you know, should I just end it here? And I'm like, I felt really confident. I felt like not overconfident, but just like, no, I think this is a great day to trade. There's a lot of volume, a lot of volatility in the market. There's so many stocks, you know, today you could have been trading, and, you know, it was like the market direction was so much clearer today than many of the days past. And I'll tell you guys something about that later in this video, why I think that is happening. And it's not just about the news. It's not just about tariffs. It's actually something else I've been researching over the weekend. I'll share with you in a sec. But at any rate, I decided, you know, let's continue playing. The day is young, right? So I went for a third trade, and, you know, looking back, I could have just stayed with Palantir this morning and just really got another great winner. I don't know exactly my reason. I think at the time I got the profit, Palantir was starting to, you know, you could see there was other people taking profit. Palantir was kind of fluctuating a little bit, and I was like, it's probably going to go up, but I don't know when exactly it's going to go back up again. So I jumped around and I looked at Tesla, and I'm like, ooh, like Tesla's selling off. So I waited and waited, kind of just to make sure I was reading the trend right, because Tesla was one of the few stocks first thing this morning that was ranging. And I was like, let me confirm here. Let me watch my charts. Let me make sure my, you know, stuff is lined up for my setup, which is, you know, I'm looking at the stochastic oscillator down here. I'm looking at the 5-minute candles closing. I'm looking at, you know, are we near support or resistance? And we were basically like wide open range. There wasn't any obvious support or resistance because Tesla had dropped so much in the pre-market and in, you know, yesterday's futures trading. So I was like, okay, you know, everything seems pretty clear cut that Tesla's going down right now. So I got in with the ETF TSLQ. And this one, again, 2 shares. And I got in at 60.81, and I set it up with the same template as Palantir for my scalp, but I did increase the profit like 2 cents. I was like, let's go for 37 cents instead of 35, you know, just playing with numbers. And this one, I got in at 6:43 a.m. Pacific, and I think the clock just shifted to the next minute, but I swear it was like in and out in 15 seconds that I got my profit at 61.18, and for a total of 74 cents on just that trade. So here I am, trade 3, it's 6:44 a.m. Pacific, and I'm like, well, that was fun. And it was so, like, it was just one of those great trading mornings where, you know, you get great setups, you get great momentum, great volume, there's plenty of things to play. You know, it was almost a sense of like FOMO, because I'm like, there's so many things. Like, you know, I was looking at a little bit of Amazon and Meta and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, just focus. You know, Palantir worked on Friday. You know, Tesla is an old favorite. Like, let's just keep it simple. So I'm glad that I did that. And so my ending P&L, when I decided like 3 is good, I'm good. I went 2 for 3. and I was up 98 cents. Woohoo, almost $1. So when I first started these 20 trades experiment, I was trading one share. And I think, on a good day, it was up maybe 50 cents, 60 cents. And I'm like, ooh, I'm almost up $1. So it's funny playing with such small position sizes, because you really start to dull down the meaning of the money. And I really felt like today I was in the zone. I was trading in the zone, as Mark Douglas says, because I was very rarely looking at the P&L. I was focused intently on the trade and watching the setup, watching for my signals. Things were happening so fast too that I was like, ooh, this is my style. Like, this is what I love. I love the scalp. Yes, I could have stayed longer with Palantir, could have, definitely pushed that one up. It went up a couple dollars, I think, after I got out and walked away. But, for what I enjoy, for what I feel like I can hone in on and get better at, is the scalping. And I've shown myself now, it's just been 2 trading days of realizing this, but I've shown myself that, I can take a couple of trades and I can make more than I'm losing. Because I think what I was doing before with my last 20 trades experiment, when I first started trading 2 shares, was I was trying too hard to grab those bigger profits. And I would allow my loss to run, and had a trailing stop, but it was still, my losses were over the gains. And then I had way more losses because I was just not thinking like I'm thinking now in terms of the scalp. So anyways, it feels like things are moving in the right direction in terms of I'm finding out my strategy, finding out my style, finding out like, hey, this is where I need to really just focus and not be trying too many different things. Just focus on what I'm having fun with, which I think is really important as a trader. Like, don't try to pigeonhole yourself into some specific style of trading because Billy Bo Bob says it works for him, right? No, you got to find what works for you, because only you know the style you like. And maybe that just means for a little while you're trying different things and you're trying different strategies and you are experimenting a lot. I feel like blessed to have started trading like this, though. The only difference between when I first started day trading in December and now is that I was trading the pre-market and I was holding it longer because I would maybe buy, like I said, 5:30 a.m. Pacific, and I would be getting out of my trade like 6:35 a.m. When the bell opened. And, so the hold time was longer, but I was, again, still scalping. I was like just, 50-cent move, dollar move, 75-cent move. It was like kind of just these smaller momentum moves. Now, granted, nowadays, those take profits aren't necessarily there in the time frames I'm trading. You might have to wait a couple hours sometimes for some of them, but that's okay. Like, I've adapted, I've gone with the flow. And I think that's important too, is not only knowing what your lane is, but also, can you adapt to the changing market? Because clearly things are different in a bear market. You could think, oh, all things are going down all day, every day. No. There's bounces, there's reversals, there's double bottoms, And what I did today with Palantir was exactly like looking at the chart, seeing that this had been selling off, and was reversing and was clearly going bullish. So that's why I went long with Palantir. It just so happened I caught Tesla when it was coming down from some bullish signs into now we're going bearish. So the opportunity almost feels like more, because when in a bull market, most things are, kind of trending up. Sometimes you have some sell-offs, but it's more likely you're going to go long with your stuff. So now you have the option to go both ways, which is kind of cool. So looking at my notes here, I just kind of like made sure to jot down the changes I made with my stops, which I think was important because in the heat of the moment, things were happening so fast. I was literally only trading actively for 12 minutes today, from 6:32 a.m. to 6:44 a.m. Pacific time. And that was it. And I was done because I'm like, I don't need to overtrade. Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities, but I was like, I don't want to overtrade. I want to just get green, get out. Don't overstay your welcome, especially in these markets where things can just turn on a dime. You just don't know. So yeah, I just made some notes about that. And then I was glad too that I had widened my stop this morning. Being flexible in that moment and not focusing on an outcome of a single trade, that gave me the opportunity to go green today. By saying, hey, I went in the wrong time with Palantir, or just my stop was way too tight. I was correct about the direction. All I need to do is just widen it, and then widening it 10 cents worked. And I did the same with Tesla, because I'm like, okay, TSLQ, yeah, it's not as volatile as Tesla itself, but it's still going to move with Tesla, and Tesla has these crazy spikes sometimes. So that worked out great too. So again, the two tricks, if you will, of what I changed, these last 2 trading days that got me green was, number one, turning off the distractions, not listening to anybody else, not having any music, not having any background noise whatsoever. I'm just me, myself, and I focused at the charts, watching for my setup, making sure I'm following the system and not looking at the P&L, right? Secondly, the meditation. I really feel like that made a big difference in just getting my mindset right before I got in the trade or before I sat down. And then just, this morning, to be fair, I didn't even listen to the whole 10-minute meditation. I did like the first 3 to 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do this past the open. It's like, I'm a little bit behind here, I guess, but it's okay. I'll just do this first part of the meditation. And then I, went in and it was all good. So anyways, guys, feel free to, before I go, I was going to say, check out the day trading resources down below. Those are a compilation of everything I put together that I'm basically learning from in month 5 now as a day trader. And the thing I talked about earlier, though, when I said that the market is following a specific pattern, and this thing I was researching over the weekend, you can look on my channel under posts. I've got something interesting there about lunar phases and trading. So basically moon cycles and how that affects the trading environment in the stock market. Believe it or not, what was interesting to me is that I personally feel like I'm affected by the moon. I actually have trouble sleeping when it's a full moon, I just feel like it just affects you. So when I did some research on ChatGPT over the weekend, I pulled up this data and put it into the post on my YouTube channel. So just when you go to my YouTube channel, just click on posts, you'll see this. And it was interesting because we had just passed a new moon on March 31st. And I asked Chat, I said, what happens after the new moon? Like, what's the next cycle and everything? And it talked about the cycle that we're currently in, which is now the first week of March, going into about to be the second. And it said that the market would have clearer direction. It would be obvious to, what setups to take. People would be more decisive, and that it would be kind of like one of the best opportunities to trade in, especially as a scalper, because, the stuff is just clear and obvious. Whereas if you remember last week and in the week before a little bit, the market was like uncertain, right? Everything was uncertainty. There was volatility, but it was like ranging kind of volatility where things would just get stuck in a range. And it was challenging. I remember, several mornings in a row where it's like, I don't know whether to go long or short. It wasn't always obvious. But now today, and even Friday, I feel like this, whatever, believe it or not, these lunar phases, I think that it is lining up exactly with what it was saying. And of course, there's a little bit more certainty with what's going on now with the tariffs, but I just found it interesting that, it kind of lined up. And so I was going into the week thinking about that and like, okay, look for the cleaner setups, look for the direction will be more obvious. And, like I said, believe it or not, if it helps you trade, by all means, use it. So anyways, guys, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.